Lisa set her coffee cup down on the table, her eyes lighting up with excitement as she turned her tablet toward me, almost squealing. "Henry, my college is hosting our 10-year reunion in Aspen, Colorado. Listen to this. They're renting out this beautiful resort with a lake and mountain trails. You have to come with me." I looked up at Lisa, unable to hide my amusement at her unexpected proposal. We had been married for almost 6 years, and I had always been curious about the friends who had shared her college years. Lisa rarely talked much about her college days, but this time she was genuinely thrilled, almost as if she were reliving her youth. "Sounds pretty great," I said with a soft chuckle, trying to sound calm even though I was honestly excited. "Are you sure they won't mind me coming along? I mean, it's your class reunion after all." Lisa squeezed my hand, her gaze earnest and determined. "Are you kidding? Everyone's bringing their spouses. It's going to be an amazing little vacation. I've already thought of a few places where we can take morning walks or have romantic dinners by the lake. It's the perfect chance for you to get to know more about my past." She was right. A trip like that would be a rare chance for us to spend some real time together, especially with how hectic life had been lately. I worked as a project manager at a large construction firm in Boston, and Lisa was a freelance interior designer. Long work hours often meant little time for each other. And honestly, I never even thought about vacationing somewhere like Aspen. That entire week, every evening after work, we sat together planning every little detail. Lisa excitedly shopped online, picking out hiking clothes for me, and even a pair of sturdy boots for the trails. I still remembered the delighted look on her face when she joked, "You'll need these if you don't want to be the last one to the top of the mountain." We booked early Friday morning flights and even decided to extend the trip by 2 more days after the reunion ended to really soak in the beauty of Colorado. Lisa eagerly told me about her old classmates, people she was sure I'd love meeting. She talked about Paul, who had become a renowned aerospace engineer, and Monica, her best friend from college, now the owner of a high-end coffee shop chain in Denver. Still, despite all her excitement, I couldn't help but notice she never once mentioned Dylan, the ex-boyfriend I knew she had dated for a good portion of her college years. I didn't press her about it, though some small part of me wondered if he would show up. Everything seemed perfectly planned, until one evening about 10 days before the trip. I was reviewing some project documents when Lisa came into my office, looking visibly upset. She sighed and sat down next to me. "Henry, I just got an email from the organizers. They made a last-minute change. Now they're not allowing spouses to come anymore because of resort capacity issues. I'm really sorry." I was caught off guard, trying to process what she said, but deep down, a small disappointment settled in. I tried to keep my tone even. "Really? There's no way to work something out?" Lisa shook her head, avoiding my eyes. "I'm frustrated too, but they said the lodging was booked months ago, and there's just no more room. Even Monica's husband can't come. I feel terrible for getting your hopes up." Seeing how disappointed she looked, I didn't want to make her feel worse. I forced a reassuring smile. "It's fine. I actually have a few projects to catch up on. I'll use the weekend to get ahead." Lisa gave a small smile, but I caught a flicker of something uneasy in her expression. She quickly changed the subject, almost like she didn't want me to dwell on it. That night, after Lisa fell asleep beside me, I lay awake for hours, unable to shake a nagging feeling growing inside me. Maybe I was overthinking it, but deep down, something didn't feel right. After all, this was supposed to be a weekend for her to reconnect with old friends. I told myself to stop worrying, but that uneasiness kept me from sleeping. The night before her flight, I leaned against the bedroom doorway, quietly watching Lisa pack. What I saw surprised me. Instead of stuffing the suitcase with hiking clothes like we'd planned, she was carefully folding several evening dresses. Dresses I knew she would never normally pack for a casual trip. She even brought the fitted red dress she had once tried on at the mall but decided against because it was too flashy. Now it was folded neatly in the center of her suitcase, along with expensive high heels and a full makeup kit she rarely touched. I walked in, keeping my voice light. "You're packing a lot. It's just a reunion, right?" Lisa froze for half a second, then quickly laughed it off. "Well, it's been years since I've seen everyone. I want to look nice for the pictures. Everyone's going to be showing off a little." I nodded and smiled, but deep inside, the questions started piling up. Still, I didn't want to sour the mood, so I stayed silent, just watching her. The next morning, I drove her to the airport. She hugged me tightly before heading toward security, whispering against my ear, "Don't overwork yourself, Henry. I'll call you every night." I watched her disappear into the crowd, feeling a strange hollowness expand inside my chest. The first day Lisa was gone, I buried myself in work, trying to shake the uneasy feeling. That night, she called me, telling me her flight went smoothly and mentioning a welcome party at the resort. I asked casually, "So what about the other spouses? Anyone else upset about the no plus ones thing?" There was the briefest pause, barely a beat, before she answered, "Yeah, everyone's a little disappointed, but it's fine. Everyone's busy anyway." Her voice was light, but I couldn't miss the hesitation. That night, I tossed and turned, sleep eluding me again. The next morning, while making coffee, my phone buzzed. A text from an unfamiliar number. "Henry, I think you should know what's going on. Mark, Lisa's college friend." Mark? I dug through my memory. He was the tall, quiet guy who had stood near Lisa in some of our wedding photos. "Curious," I replied to confirm. Mark quickly sent more texts and a few photos. My stomach twisted as I read. There was never a rule against spouses. Monica, Paul, even Greg and his wife are all here. Everyone was wondering why you didn't come. Lisa told everyone you had to work. Along with the text were photos from the previous night's party. Lisa, sitting at a table, beaming brightly, right next to a man I didn't recognize immediately. Mark followed up. "The guy sitting next to her is Dylan, Lisa's ex from college. They've been pretty inseparable all night. I hate getting involved, but I thought you deserved to know." I gripped the phone tightly, my fingers turning white from the pressure. My mind went blank for a few seconds, then wave after wave of questions crashed over me. Why would Lisa make up a story about banning spouses? Why would she lie about me being too busy with work? I forced myself to stay calm and texted back, "Thank you, Mark. Can you tell me more details?" Mark replied quickly, "All day yesterday, Lisa and Dylan stayed close, whispering and laughing together. Last night, when everyone headed out to the campfire, they disappeared for almost an hour. When they came back, Lisa was laughing like she'd just heard the funniest story. I hate to assume, but it didn't seem like a normal reunion." I collapsed onto a chair, a chill spreading through my body. I didn't want to believe it, but each piece was fitting into a cruel, undeniable puzzle. Lisa had staged an entire story just to make sure I wouldn't show up, just so she could be alone with Dylan? My head spun. Every promise about a shared vacation, every smile, every rushed goodbye at the airport, suddenly felt fake and distant. I didn't know what had happened, what was happening, or what was about to happen. But I knew one thing for sure. The truth was waiting for me, and this time, I wasn't going to look away. After reading Mark's text, I sat frozen, staring at my phone. Part of me wanted desperately to believe it was all a misunderstanding, but deep inside I couldn't ignore the growing dread. I opened my laptop, logged into our phone carrier account, and pulled up Lisa's call history. My hands trembled slightly as I typed the familiar password. The call logs stretched endlessly down the screen. In just the 3 weeks leading up to her trip, Lisa had made more than 10 calls to a number I didn't recognize, a number not saved in her contacts. The calls ranged from a few minutes to nearly an hour. The one that chilled me to the core was a 48-minute call, just hours before her flight to Colorado. I copied the number into my phone and texted Mark. "Do you know who 720-8XXXXX belongs to?" A few minutes later, Mark replied, "That's Dylan's number. He moved back to Denver from Arizona about 6 months ago after his divorce." "Why?" I set the phone down, taking a long, slow breath. The pieces in my head started to snap painfully into place. I couldn't sit still. I opened social media. Lisa hadn't posted anything, but when I searched Monica Schnescher, her best friend from college, dozens of photos popped up. In a group photo taken near the lake, everyone was laughing under the golden afternoon light. Off to the side, I saw Lisa and Dylan standing much too close. Dylan was leaning slightly toward her, and Lisa was looking up at him with a smile I once believed was reserved only for me. I clicked into another album posted by Paul. At a nighttime BBQ party, among the glowing string lights, Lisa and Dylan were sitting apart from the main crowd, leaned in so close their foreheads nearly touched. Nobody seemed to notice, but the camera had captured it, raw and undeniable. Mark hadn't been exaggerating. It was all right there, clearer than any excuse could ever be. I scrolled further. Another photo. The group gathered around a bonfire. Lisa sat on a log, Dylan standing just behind her, his hands stuffed in his pockets, but his eyes were locked onto her. In the flickering light, the intimacy between them felt almost tangible. There was no distance, none of the casual space you'd expect between old friends. No hesitation, no boundaries. I leaned back into the chair, my chest heavy. If Lisa had simply wanted to reconnect with old friends, why the elaborate lie about spouses being banned? If it was truly innocent, why the endless phone calls leading up to the trip? My phone buzzed again, a new text from Mark. I don't know if you want to hear this, but after the bonfire last night, Lisa and Dylan left together. They didn't come back to the lodge for almost 2 hours. I closed my eyes, my hands clenching into fists. Every move Lisa made felt like another tiny blade, slicing deeper into the trust I'd given her over the years. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table, flipping through the photos, rereading the messages. Maybe I had been a fool to believe in those late-night photo sessions, those plans we made so eagerly together. A thought flashed through my mind. I needed to confront Lisa, needed to hear the explanation straight from her. But another, colder thought settled even stronger. Was there even anything left to save, after so many lies? I picked up my phone and drafted a message. When you get back, we need to talk. I didn't send it. Instead, I saved everything, the photos, the call logs, the texts, then shut my phone off. I knew, from that moment on, nothing between Lisa and me would ever be the same again. No matter what she said, no matter how much she cried, some truths, once exposed, could never be undone. And I knew, the next time I looked her in the eye, I wouldn't be the same blind, trusting man she once knew. I waited in silence for Lisa to come home. Her suitcase wheels clattered harshly against the wooden floor, a sound that felt painfully loud in our once familiar house. When she stepped into the living room and saw me sitting there with the laptop open and papers spread across the table, her smile immediately faded. "Henry, you're home early," she said, her voice awkward. I didn't answer right away. I quietly slid the printed photos, the detailed call logs, and the screenshots across the table toward her. Each piece of evidence, a cold blade aimed straight at the promises she once made. Lisa stood frozen, her eyes darting across the papers like she was hoping this was all just some terrible joke. I said, my voice flat, as if even anger had been drained away. "Explain." She collapsed into the chair opposite me, rubbing her face with trembling hands. After a long moment, Lisa finally spoke. "Yes, Dylan was at the reunion." She hesitated, carefully picking her words. But nothing happened. "You're blowing this way out of proportion." I stared at her, no trace of trust left in my eyes. "And what about you making up the story about no spouses allowed? What about the nearly hour-long phone calls to Dylan before you even left?" Lisa pressed her lips into a tight line, then suddenly snapped, her voice sharpening. "So you were spying on me, going through my call records?" That accusation hit like a slap across the room. "You violated my privacy, Henry. You didn't trust me, and now you're trying to set me up like some detective." I let out a dry, broken laugh, a sound that didn't even feel like it belonged to me anymore. "Lisa, if you had nothing to hide, then why did you make up a story to stop me from coming? Why did you lie to everyone, telling them I was tied up with work?" She opened her mouth as if to answer, then closed it again, unable to come up with even a flimsy excuse. I stood up, every movement heavy with the weight of all the years we had shared. "I don't need to hear anything else," I said coldly. "I'm moving out. I need time to think, and I can't do that while living under the same roof with someone I no longer recognize." Lisa jumped up, her face drained of color. You're being ridiculous, Henry. This is just a misunderstanding. We've been together for 6 years. You're really willing to throw it all away over a few badly timed photos? I stared straight into her trembling eyes. It's not about the photos, Lisa. It's about the lies. It's about the fact that you chose deceit over honesty with the man you call your husband. I left Lisa standing there, grabbing the small suitcase I had secretly packed the night before. I drove straight to my sister Ellie's house, who also happened to be a divorce attorney in Boston. When I walked through the door, Ellie was already waiting for me in the living room, 2 steaming mugs of coffee set out on the table. She looked at me for a long time before quietly asking, "Are you sure?" I sank into the chair, gripping the coffee cup like it was the only thing anchoring me to reality. It's all clear now, Ellie. I don't know if I could ever forgive her for choosing betrayal and then weaving an entire web of lies to cover it up. Ellie nodded without saying anything else. She just silently slid a folder across the table. "We don't have to file right away," she said. "But starting today, you need to protect yourself. Save every message, every email, everything." I nodded, feeling a part of my heart harden permanently. A tiny voice inside still whispered that maybe not everything was lost. But deep down I knew everything had changed, and nothing would ever be the same. That evening, as darkness swallowed the city, I sat alone by the window in Ellie's living room, watching the car lights blur into long streaks of memory. My phone buzzed on the table. Lisa's name appeared, along with a short text. "Henry, please, let me explain one more time." I didn't respond. I just stared at the message, letting it drift away like a dying puff of smoke. Some cracks, no matter how you patch them, will never be whole again. 3 days after I moved in with Ellie, Mark reached out to me again. He sent a short text. "Henry, I think you should see this. It might help you understand what's really going on." We agreed to meet at a small cafe downtown where no one knew either of us. I got there early, sitting by the window where the pale autumn light spread across my hand like a cold wash. Mark walked in with a heavy look on his face. Without any small talk, he pulled out his phone and showed me a new batch of photos. In the first picture, taken during the welcome dinner, everyone's seating had been pre-assigned with little name cards. Lisa was supposed to sit next to Monica, according to the original plan. But in the photo, her name card had been moved. She was now seated right next to Dylan. Mark pointed at it, speaking low. Nobody switched seats except Lisa. Monica's card got pushed off to the side, almost deliberately. I swallowed a mouthful of dry air, my heart pounding in my chest. Mark flipped through more photos. At every event, hiking, the lakeside picnic, the bonfire dinner, Lisa and Dylan were never far apart. Sometimes they'd be tucked into a quiet corner, sometimes sitting close together on a rock, laughing as if they were the only 2 people there. There were times, Mark said slowly, his words heavy with meaning, when the whole group would be hanging out, and the 2 of them would just slip away. Not once. Not twice. More than that. I sat there, frozen, the pictures feeling like fresh blades carving into me. Mark hesitated, then added, "Henry, I know this is hard to hear, but you deserve to know. One night, after the outdoor BBQ, Lisa and Dylan left early. Monica saw them heading toward the woods behind the lodge. They didn't come back until late." I closed Mark's phone and looked up at him. "Did she explain anything?" I asked, my voice barely audible. Mark shook his head, exhausted. "Lisa told Monica she went to grab more water from the lodge, but they took backpacks. And when they came back, they weren't carrying anything." I leaned back in my chair, the overhead lights blurring into a haze. The truth was too clear to ignore now, but part of me still clung to some tiny, stupid hope. Mark handed me one last thing, a screenshot of a group chat among their old classmates. Someone named Aaron had texted after the reunion. "Anyone else think Lisa and Dylan seem like they picked up right where they left off? They're acting way closer than just old friends." Another person replied with a winking emoji and said, "Looks like some things never change." Nobody seemed surprised. Nobody questioned it. As if Lisa and Dylan being glued together was just expected. When Mark left the cafe, he clapped me gently on the shoulder. "If you need anything else, call me. I don't want to get too deep into this, but you deserve the truth." I nodded silently, watching him disappear into the crowd, leaving me alone with the shattered pieces of my heart. That night, I sat at Ellie's kitchen table for hours, organizing every piece of evidence, every photo, every message. Every word from Mark felt like salt ground into an open wound. Lisa hadn't just lied about Dylan attending. She had deliberately positioned herself to be close to him at every opportunity, avoiding the eyes of everyone around them. Every word she said about nothing happening and just being old friends now sounded like a cheap joke compared to the undeniable truth staring back at me. My phone buzzed again. It was Lisa again. A short message. "I know you're angry, but please give me a chance to explain everything. I love you." I set the phone down on the table without replying. I had given her my whole heart. And now, silence was the only thing I could offer back. Just 3 days after I ignored Lisa's last message, she showed up at Ellie's front door. I was fixing an old window frame in the living room when I heard the doorbell. When I opened the door, there she was, hair messy, eyes swollen from crying. She was holding a small paper bag. Inside was a sandwich from the shop we used to visit near our old house, my favorite. "Henry, please." Her voice cracked on the very first word. "Please let me explain one more time. We can fix this. I already scheduled a marriage counseling session for next week. I'll do anything. Just give me a chance." I said nothing, arms crossed against the doorframe, staring at her in silence. Lisa took a step closer, the paper bag shaking in her hands. "I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But I swear, nothing happened between me and Dylan. I was just confused, caught up in old memories, and I acted stupidly. But I love you, Henry. I love you." She broke down in sobs, tears streaming down her cheeks. Anger surged in me, but I kept my voice cold and steady. "Lisa, you didn't just make a mistake. You lied. You created an entire story to cover up what you were doing. You left me no choice but to blindly trust you. And now you want to save this after everything's already shattered?" Lisa dropped to her knees right there on the porch, drawing glances from a few passers-by. "Please, Henry. You're my whole world. Don't give up on us. You said we would face anything together." I turned my face away, my heart feeling like it was being crushed in someone's hands. I had once believed we would grow old together. Now all that remained was the ashes of trust. Ellie stood at a distance, not intervening, but her watchful eyes said everything. I sighed, forcing down the storm raging inside me. "Lisa, you need to go. This isn't the place for drama. If you really respect me, give me time to think." Lisa seemed about to argue, but some part of her must have realized it was useless. She got up, stumbling slightly, her small figure disappearing into the busy street. I thought things might finally quiet down. I was wrong. The very next day, Lisa's family got involved. First, her mother, Martha, called me, her voice thick with tears. "Henry, please, give Lisa another chance. She's so sorry. You know, everyone makes mistakes. Marriage isn't always perfect." I politely thanked her and hung up, but before I could breathe, her father, Gerald, called next. Unlike Martha, his voice was rough, laced with suppressed anger. "Son-in-law, I know men can be too proud sometimes, but let me tell you, throwing away a marriage over something so small is just foolish. Remember, forgiveness is the foundation of a family." I held the phone tightly, closing my eyes, fighting back the fury boiling inside. But it didn't stop there. The next day, they came to Ellie's house. After a long work meeting, I came home to see their familiar SUV parked out front. Martha was sitting in the living room, tears streaming down her face, while Gerald paced like a caged animal. "Think about the future, Henry," Gerald barked the moment I stepped inside. "You and Lisa were planning to have kids. Do you really want your future child growing up in a broken home over a simple misunderstanding?" Martha sobbed. "She even bought tickets for your 7th anniversary trip, Henry. It was supposed to be a surprise. She loves you more than anything." I stood there, looking at the familiar faces that now felt so foreign. They wanted me to forgive. They wanted me to forget every cut Lisa had made. But it was Lisa herself who had destroyed everything with her lies. I met their eyes steadily, my voice low but firm. I'm sorry. Some things. An apology just can't fix. Nobody said another word. The silence stretched heavy and thick, like a winter blanket smothering the room. That night, after they left, I sat alone on the porch, staring at the distant city lights flickering in the dark. I knew Lisa wasn't going to give up easily, and I knew this fight had only just begun. 1 week after that tense encounter with Lisa's family, I ran into Jamie at a hardware store near my new place. Jamie, Dylan's old college buddy, recognized me immediately, even though the last time we met was at my wedding. He approached, looking hesitant but determined. "Henry, there's something I think you should know." I set down my shopping basket, a cold dread pooling in my chest. Jamie glanced around and lowered his voice. "I don't want to get involved, but Dylan told me he and Lisa slept together at the reunion." I froze, every sound around me fading into a distant hum. Jamie continued, his face full of regret. "Dylan said Lisa came on to him. She told him you two were having problems, that she wasn't sure if she even wanted to stay married." At first, Dylan hesitated, but in the end, well, it happened. I swallowed hard, forcing my voice to stay calm. "Are you sure?" Jamie nodded. "I have no reason to make this up, Henry. Honestly, I was shocked too. I just thought you deserved to know before you made any decisions." I thanked Jamie and left the store quickly. The whole drive home, my heart slammed against my ribs. Everything I had tried to deny, tried to justify, was now laid brutally bare. That night, I sat alone in my empty kitchen, the glow of my phone lighting up the familiar name. "Lisa," I called her. She picked up after just one ring, her voice full of hope. "Henry?" I didn't waste time. "Lisa, is there anything else you haven't told me?" There was a long pause, just the sound of her breathing, shaky and uneven. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I ran into Jamie," I said, each word landing like a blade in the suffocating air. "He said Dylan bragged about sleeping with you during the reunion." Lisa stayed silent. The silence was so heavy it felt like I could hear my own heart pounding out of rhythm inside my chest. Finally, her voice broke through, shattered and small. "No, it's not what you think, I swear, Henry." I closed my eyes, struggling to keep my voice steady. "Then what is it? Explain." Lisa sighed, a sound like a late confession. "It's true that Dylan and we kissed. Just once, Henry. On the last night, after the farewell party. We had been drinking, everyone was celebrating, and I got caught up in the moment." I clenched the phone tighter. Lisa rushed on. "I pushed Dylan away right after. I knew it was wrong. I regretted it immediately. I even cried in my room all night." Her voice cracked. I just felt lost, Henry. Everyone was reminiscing about the old days, and I missed that carefree time. I didn't mean to betray you. I love you. But in that moment, I was weak. I sat there, my knuckles turning white from gripping the phone. I asked coldly, "And you expect me to believe, after all the lies, all the games, that it was just a kiss?" Lisa broke down in tears. "I know I hurt you. But please, don't throw away 6 years together over one mistake. I'll do anything to make it right." I leaned back in my chair, the dim yellow light above showing the cracks spreading across my heart. One kiss, one moment of weakness, or just the tip of an iceberg I had never truly seen. I ended the call, no promises, no comfort. I knew only one thing. When trust breaks, no words can stitch it back together. That night, I sat by the open window, letting the cold night air flood the empty room. Outside, the headlights of passing cars blurred into pale streams of unreachable light. 3 days after that tearful call, Lisa sent me a long email. No greeting, no excuses, just an attached file titled simply, The Truth. I opened it, my hands cold despite the heater humming nearby. The first line sliced through the already fragile trust like a blade. I haven't been honest with you. I'm sorry. Lisa confessed that during the 3 weeks before the trip, she and Dylan hadn't just been casually checking in on mutual friends, as she had claimed. They had been exchanging emotional messages, filled with longing, memories of the past, and vague promises like, things could have been different if... She admitted, deleting the entire thread just days before her flight. Because I didn't want to hurt you if you ever stumbled upon it. I leaned back in the chair, feeling hollow. Faithful wife doesn't need to erase messages with an old flame. Never. Lisa continued, her words shaky like footsteps of someone who knew they had wandered too far from the way back. And there's something else, something I didn't have the courage to admit from the start. It wasn't just a kiss. I stopped breathing for a second, eyes glued to the screen, as if watching a train wreck I couldn't look away from. The first night at the resort, after the welcome dinner, I met Dylan at his private cabin. We slept together. Each word hit like a hammer to the chest. But Lisa didn't stop. On the last night, after the farewell party, we met again. And it happened again. The room seemed to shrink around me, every other sound fading to nothing. All I could hear was the heavy, painful beating of my own heart. Lisa kept confessing, her words dripping with despair. I planned to be near Dylan. From the beginning, the lie about no spouses allowed was so you wouldn't come. I just wanted to feel free for once, to relive my youth for a little while. Free? Relive? By stabbing the person who had held her hand through 6 years of life together? I slammed the laptop shut, burying my head in my hands. Everything I had trusted, everything I had built, crumbled like a sandcastle under a violent tide. That evening, Lisa showed up at Ellie's house again. No warning, no knocking. She just stood there, shivering in the cold autumn rain, her hair plastered to her pale face. I opened the door, standing firmly in the doorway. Lisa looked up at me, her eyes bloodshot, her lips cracked from the cold. "Henry," she whispered, "please, don't leave me." I crossed my arms, studying her for a long moment. "Is there anything else you haven't confessed, Lisa?" My voice was cold as steel. She dropped her head like the whole world had crumbled beneath her. "No, there's nothing else. I've told you everything. I'm sorry for everything. I'll do anything. I swear I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you." I looked at the woman standing before me, the one I had once loved with everything I had. And I knew, no matter how many tears she shed, no matter how much she begged, there was now a canyon between us that nothing could ever bridge. I quietly closed the door. No words, no tears, just the heavy sound of rain pounding the pavement, washing away every trace Lisa left behind. The next morning, I went to Ellie's office. The divorce papers she had prepared weeks earlier were sitting neatly on her desk. I picked up the pen, my hand trembling slightly. For a brief moment, memories of our early days flooded back. Lisa's laughter the first time she walked into my tiny apartment. The Sunday mornings in the kitchen. The tight hugs at the end of long days. All of it, now, just shattered pieces. I signed my name. It was over. Ellie looked up at me, her gaze cautious. "Are you sure, Henry? Once we file, everything will move very quickly." I nodded. No more hesitation, no more regrets. Just 2 days after Lisa received the divorce papers, she showed up at Ellie's house, tears streaming down her face, begging me to reconsider. "Henry, please. I'll go to counseling, I'll change, I'll do anything. Just give me one more chance." I stood still, silently watching her collapse to her knees on the front step. A part of me wanted to lift her up, wanted to believe that love could fix everything. But reason, cold, sharp reason, reminded me, some wounds, even if they heal, leave scars that never fade. I said just one thing. "Lisa, forgiveness is one thing, but forgetting, I can't." She cried until no tears were left, but in the end she couldn't sway my decision. The following week, Lisa officially hired a lawyer to contest the divorce, trying to drag out the process every way she could. proposing mandatory marriage counseling, requesting extensions to improve the relationship, even filing a motion to the court to review the grounds for divorce. Ellie just scoffed as she reviewed the paperwork. Typical stalling tactics. But we're ready for it. She was right. Massachusetts law recognizes no-fault divorces, without needing to prove wrongdoing by either party. No matter how hard Lisa fought, she couldn't change the outcome. By the 6th week, everything suddenly shifted. Without warning, Lisa's lawyer sent over an agreement to finalize the divorce, accepting the original terms Ellie had drafted: sell the house, split the profits, each keep all personal assets, no further disputes. I was surprised, but Ellie just shrugged. She probably realized that if she pushed any harder, the texts, photos, and witness statements would come to light. Better for her to settle quickly. We quickly began the process of selling the old house. On appraisal day, I returned to the place that had once held all our hopes and shared dreams. The house was still there, exactly as I had left it. The gray sofa Lisa had chosen, the landscape painting I bought during a trip to Vermont, the lingering marks of a life once shared. Only now, the air inside was hollow and cold. The agent estimated the house would fetch a good price, thanks to the hot market. I agreed immediately. I didn't want to hold on to anything tied to that rotted past. Within 3 weeks, we received 2 offers, both above asking price. Lisa and I signed the sale documents at different times as arranged by our lawyers, avoiding any unnecessary contact. On the final closing day, the agent handed me an envelope containing my half of the proceeds, after debts were cleared. Half for me, half transferred directly to Lisa's account. No debts, no ties left. I stood in front of the house one last time, hands tucked into my jacket pockets, looking at it like a dying flame. Lisa had once been my home. Now it was just an empty house. And a costly lesson about trust. I turned away without looking back. Because once you close the door on the past, the only direction left is forward. One early March morning, when the snow had just melted to reveal patches of yellow grass, I received an email from Lisa. The subject line was short, almost cold. Final apology. I sat in front of the screen, hesitating for a few minutes before opening it. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to let it all stay buried. But eventually I clicked. The letter wasn't long, but every word weighed heavy. Henry, I lied to you more than I ever dared to admit. I reached out to Dylan as soon as I found out he was attending the reunion. I made plans behind your back to keep you from coming. I texted, called, and arranged everything. And during that trip, I didn't just slip once. I'm not writing this to ask for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I just want to return the truth you should have had long ago. I won't bother you again. I hope you find the peace I couldn't give you. I read the email 3 times. No anger.
No pain. Just a hollow feeling, like finally placing a period at the end of an old, battered chapter. I moved the email into a separate folder and shut my laptop. No reply. No confrontation. I chose to end this story with silence. The only thing left after all the screaming, anguish, and tears. In the weeks that followed, I focused on rebuilding my life. I rented a small apartment in South End. Not big, not fancy, but enough for a fresh start. Each evening after work, I assembled furniture by hand: the dining table, a small bookshelf in the corner of the living room, wedding photos on the walls, no drawers stuffed with painful memories, just a quiet, peaceful space, something I had craved for months. One early summer evening, I stood on the 3rd floor balcony, coffee in hand, watching the streetlights twinkle below. The night sky over the city was just as beautiful as ever, only this time I could truly breathe without feeling suffocated. Lisa never contacted me again. No texts, no calls, no messages through mutual friends. She disappeared from my life as quietly as she had once walked away from the promises we made. A few friends asked if I wanted to start dating again. I just smiled and shook my head. not because I had lost faith in love, but because I knew before I could love someone else, I needed to relearn how to love myself. Lately, I spent weekends doing things I once dreamed of but never had time for. Taking a photography class in the suburbs, running in the park every Sunday morning, sometimes driving up to the mountains of New Hampshire just to watch the sunrise. Nobody stood beside me during those moments, but strangely, I never felt lonely. Only a pure, quiet freedom, like a fresh breeze blowing through an open window. One night, while reorganizing my bookshelf, I found the old wedding album. I sat down and flipped through it, the smiling faces, the sweet handwritten notes, the hand holding that once felt like it would last forever. I smiled faintly, closed the album, and for the first time, didn't feel pain. I placed it into a sealed cardboard box and carried it to the basement, not because I wanted to erase the past, but because I had learned the past belongs behind you, not as a chain around your ankles. Tomorrow would be a new day, a different beginning, a new chapter in Henry's life. And this time, I was holding the pen. Sometimes betrayal doesn't just take away a relationship, it forces you to confront your own trust and self worth. Through all the wreckage and heartbreak, I realized that letting go isn't failure, it's an act of saving yourself. Some people, some memories, no matter how beautiful they once were, are meant to stay in the past. Now, I live for myself, valuing peace more than empty promises, and that is true freedom. What do you think about Henry's story and the choices he made? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to follow the channel for more real-life, emotional stories about love, family, and life.